You say khaki, I say cocky, darling. Let's call the whole thing off. Is that how it goes? Today, a world exclusive. I'm honoured to be the first independent non-watch dealer to do a hands-on review of two of the most important new watches for 2025, not only featuring a new movement, but beyond that, a glimpse into an exciting possible future for Swiss watches at the affordable level. So I'm also going to take this opportunity to share with you 6 reasons why this is a game changer for Hamilton, along with all the positives, negatives of the watches themselves. So let's roll the new 2025 intro and get into it. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Now, before I get into it, you know what I'm going to ask. If you could please like this video. I don't ask for membership fees or Patreon or any of that stuff. So if you want to see more free and independent content like this, please do hit that like button. Oh, and most important of all, your feedback. I love interacting with you. It really helps, so do leave your feedback in the comments. I'll do a very quick wristwatch check, having another honeymoon phase, a second honeymoon phase with the Laurier Merlin that I co-designed. Anyway, let's get on with you know who.
Switzerland means many things to people, but it might be best known for its watches.
Now, I'm sure many of you have seen the rather controversial Bloomberg video, along with its inventive pronunciation of Breguet.
2 brands at the very high end, Breguet and Blancpain.
But if you are a true OG, original Gentry that is, you will recall that much of the squeezing of the middle-level brands I predicted several years ago. The only difference being the acceleration of how it's happening due to recent changes with international trade agreements. By the time I actually spent weeks editing this video, things could have changed dramatically yet again. However, one thing that I do profoundly feel is a constant, or for certain rather, is that there are choppy waters ahead for the industry. And I feel quite profoundly that Hamilton has a better chance, or has the ability to weather this storm better than other brands, and I feel today's watch is proof of this. The first and perhaps most obvious factor is history. The award-winning Khaki collection is the culmination of an uninterrupted 83 years of producing field watches, with over 1 million produced during the wartime alone between 1942 and 45. Some could argue that the progenitors of today's examples started even earlier, with the Hamilton trench watches of World War I, evolved by martial necessity, themselves being based on an extensive legacy of railroad timekeeping. However, where the Khaki rarely comes into its own design language was in 1966 with the introduction of the grade 649 movement. That included hacking as specified by the mil spec of the time, and then subsequently famously issued during the Vietnam War. The 24-hour dial markings and matte parkerized non-reflective finish to avoid giving away one's position in tandem dictated its instantly recognizable core dictum of aesthetics. Like the Submariner, the Speedy, the Navi Timer, these instantly recognizable icons, the Hamilton is up there, certainly. That's why it's hanging in the war room, The war room, of course.
You're mussing for it. Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
That's a cinematic deep cut, and of course, Hamilton's linked to Kubrick through 2001. Brings me on to another great point. Through cultural osmosis of cinematic and extensive television fame, it's only reinforced this synonymous connection of this design that's remained relatively unchanged, like the Submariner, like the Speedmaster. With Hamilton, few brands at this price point can compete with that, if any.
As a member of the Hamilton family, in the beginning, when you started to work here, you probably wondered how you were going to fit into things. But you were enthusiastic, eager to learn the job. We told you that a new world would be open to you. A world where you have found that nearly everyone works with precision tools and with watch parts that are both intriguing and fascinating.
But it's not just exterior looks and historicity. It's no secret that Hamilton is now part of the vast Swatch empire, and with that comes the blessing of access to the group's movement manufacturing giant, ETA. This allows Hamilton unbridled access and the ability to not only save on costs, and thus becoming more competitive, but today's debuting watches are a prime example of the kind of innovation that is possible. This is the new for 2025 caliber H23, and naturally manually wound, with a power reserve complication to display its extremely well endowed 80-hour power reserve. And as this is brand spanking new, I don't have all the technical details yet, how it's regulated, to what level, etc., because at the time of recording this, it hasn't even been released yet. But what I can say is that it's hackable, a true no date, and features a Navicron balance spring. Listen to that winding, just listen to that. Normally I don't just read the press release because it's lazy video making, but there's nothing online because it hasn't been released yet about this movement. But I wanted to read you something that's very interesting. They added plates that shift relative to each other that leads to a desynchronization after you've basically topped it up. You know, when you've gone full all the way on the power reserve, it disconnects from the main barrel spring and it just keeps winding. It doesn't come to a hard stop. This is very clever. So they're not only developed a new movement around a new case to house it. This is a lot of R&D, millions have gone into this. They've also improved upon, you know, previous manual wind by adding this feature so you can't break it. I have to say the winding is really refined feeling, strangely refined feeling. It reminds me actually of my Breguet, so that says a lot. It's very solid, which is important because if you're going to have, you know, decades of topping this up every few days. And then on top of that, functionally speaking, for this genre, it makes perfect sense, but also more profoundly in a historical context, as we'll take a look at right now. With the emphasis typically on the brand's movie stardom, we tend to forget that Hamilton was a watchmaking innovator as well. The Buren-developed first micro-rotor caliber I previously owned in a vintage Thin-O-Matic actually beat my much-beloved Universal Genève to its record-breaking punch. Not to mention the world's first digital watch, the Pulsar, put to best possible use by 007.
One more time again. Ma non è possibile, amore.
Spoil me.
5 minutes later.
Such a delicate touch.
Sheer magnetism, man.
And of course there's the world's pre-quartz first electric watch, the Ventura, from 1957. Oh, and I almost forgot, Hamilton played a pivotal role in assisting the R&D of the Caliber 11, which of course was one of the world's first automatic chronographs. While in this case the power reserve complication is not exactly reinventing the balance wheel, it is undeniably a clever reference to their own heritage of military marine chronometers, where this complication was vital in the precision navigational timekeeping required to keep constant awareness of the remaining spring tension. So in hindsight, with that in mind, it's genius to offer it in this contemporary descendant, and very much a return to watchmaking form for Hamilton. Oh, I just can't say it. It's a really great value it's an amazing value I can't say it.
approximately 10 hours later.
Value? Value? I can say proposition. I can say value. I just can't say value. It makes me nauseous because it's my biggest fear of having to turn into a watch dealer and sell overpriced alarm clocks. If you can name a quality in-group proprietary Swiss-made iconic watch from a truly historically important brand that's been on both battlefields and the silver screen for less, I'd normally ask you to nominate it in the comments, but don't even bother because none come close. Not to mention a brand featuring an evolutionary step with this new movement on their own original field watch. But let's not neglect to mention the peace of mind of having lower servicing costs and the ease of it being an international operation. Now, these two new watches comes in 4 configurations in total. Firstly, most obviously, in either a black matted dial with crisp white printing or the more subtly textured eggshell finish to something I would describe as a chalk white dial. But aside from color schemes, the only other difference being the printed markings and signature syringe style handset has also been inverted to a jet black on the white version. But both have the same faux tina, which I'm sure is going to ruffle a few feathers. Personally, I don't mind it. Now, with these two variants, it comes to a total of 4 as they're offered with or without a superbly matching sandblasted steel bracelet, which comes out to over the $1,000 mark, and alternatively, also an extremely well-made NATO-style bicolor forest green and a pecan brown leather strap for under $1,000. However, as we're talking value, for this historic release, I honestly think the non-bracelet presents the better deal. So I'm absolutely obsessed with the Hamilton Ventura. I'm determined to add one to my own collection, but I'm in the phase of researching and learning about it. It's half the fun, right? And I bought this amazing book as a result. I highly recommend it. Arbib was a New Yorker famed for his 1950s jet age automotive designs, just as much as his insanely strepitoso watches. The Ventura followed a similar conceptual vision, how he imagined cars would look like in the year 2000, which ironically, to us in 2025 looking back, results in a charmingly timeless retro-futurism. The Khaki, on the other hand, is on the entirely opposing, purely utilitarian side of the design spectrum, where form is nowhere near an imagined future in which style influences function. But what this rich dichotomy allows us to comprehend is the endless possibilities in between, especially when you look at more recent, less militaristic-focused automatic variants of the Khaki, where embellishment via beguiling dial colors and chic contrasting finishes combine elegance with purpose. And this brings me on to the only 3 negatives I can see with these new releases. The 40mm diameter for purists, and for people like yours truly with chicken wrists, as they say, a 36mm version would have made more sense. But I get it. They need to be economically successful, and despite current watch trends, more people still buy bigger watches. It's just simple economics. However, in defense of the size, at least it maintained a decent manual wind dictated slenderness. And thinking back to the last Hamilton I had in my collection, aside from the obvious fragility that comes from being vintage, I never actually thought I'd say this, but I did find the period-correct 34mm diameter of my ultra-rare Averex Khaki a tad too small, no matter how many times I reminded myself of the brave chaps who wore them during combat in the hellacious jungles of Vietnam. The second drawback is, they did correct this in the past with larger models, so God knows why they didn't do it again here, but why no loomed numerals? The diminutive triangles will never compare to the instant orientation of big, bright numbers in superluminova, especially with those distinctive rounded numerals that are so indicative of the Hamilton Khaki. The last in my trifecta of sadness, not that it's the end of the world, but it has to be said, it's still only attached with pin-fitted links and a bog-standard stamped clasp. It would have been nice to have some kind of on-the-fly adjustment, which has become very much standard feature across the industry, and of course the pinned links I mentioned earlier are very dated in 2025.
Due palle, grandissime palle, così. Hai capito?
やっぱアナログの時計で、やっぱり僕が子供の時のそういう時計ができるのは羽生伊藤さんかなという。
While it was never intended for most watch enthusiasts, the recent Kojima collaboration with the official watch of Death Stranding 2 sold out. In fact, it was gone faster than a toupee in a hurricane. While it was unquestionably a Marmite watch, nobody can deny it was another pioneering and ballsy move into an industry yet untapped by most, if not all, traditional Swiss brands. There were also many Easter eggs hidden in its design, and taste aside, it was clever stuff, so I do urge you to watch that video, even if you despise it at first glance. It gives you an idea of how watches will be designed and marketed in the future. And if we look back further to the book I mentioned earlier, there's a whole plethora of designs that Arbib created for Hamilton. And while most never actually came to fruition, it made me realize just how deep the archives go. And coupled with the technological prowess and pop culture stardom we discussed before, the possibilities for creativity and innovation are certainly more than any brand I can think of at this price point, and certainly in the entire Swatch group. This courage, this willingness to think different, I think also extends to the people behind the brand. The more and more I learn about the industry, the more people I'm exposed to, I start to see this more often that, there's many brands I adore, I love. I love their watches, but I will never talk about them and I will never buy them for myself because of the people behind the brand. After the Kojima review, I honestly thought they'd never contact me again. I don't know why I thought that. My negatives or my critiques of the watch weren't that controversial. It's just that, a lot of brands do not want the negatives to be addressed. Hamilton, no, they not only contacted me, but they sent me the samples before anybody else. Yeah, it's an element of risk, but so much so they agreed to sponsor the production only of this video. They don't try and control what I say. I can still express my opinions honestly. I'm never going to trash a brand that doesn't do anybody any good, but I will address the negatives justly. And so I think that shows a level of trust between us, and I respect that. No watch is perfect, right? Even my own watches that I've co-designed, right? No watch is perfect. What's the point if we don't address the good and the bad, the negatives and the positives? I mean, what are we doing otherwise? I can say whatever I want, No one has editorial control, and that is why I seldom accept brands to directly sponsor the videos, and they only sponsor the production only. I must stress that. Real constructive criticism. I'm not talking about the when you insult somebody and you say, oh, it's just constructive criticism. No, I'm talking about real, informed feedback, right? Anyway, this has devolved into a whole rant about the ethics of making content, but I think this shows trust, and I love that. If I didn't believe in the brand, this video wouldn't exist. Khaki Mechanical, and specifically their most iconic manual wind variant that my fabulous wall clock honours, has attained an almost mythical status that few serious watches ever do. Just like the Seiko SKX, the Khaki sits alongside bona fide heavyweights in the watch boxes of both seasoned collectors with infinite pockets to newcomers. The Moonswatch being the only other recent timepiece that I have seen to boast this watch snob-proof quality. But long thesis short, essentially it's a true American design icon, free of any lofty pretentiousness or polluted by out-of-touch luxury elitism. While unashamedly Swiss, and super Swiss at that, being Swatch, there's still that inherent spirit of Americana coolness, the high watermark I talked about recently with my Willard video that Hunter S. Thompson so eloquently spoke of. In a world full of increasing dangers of manipulation from an ever more convincing insidious artificiality, the need for authenticity in this misinformation age will grow, thus making the simple act of manually winding a mechanical watch, for lack of a better expression, great again. So in closing, I feel, and rather fittingly, the battleground for the future of the Swiss watch industry will be fought at this price point with heritage Swiss brands like this. Not so much the aspirational luxury. And to quote one of my heroes, Marcus Aurelius, what stands in the way becomes the way. And what I mean by that is that if you look back at history, look at the quartz crisis, right? It got asses moving. Yes, it was detrimental to the industry, but if you look at all the designs and the amazing innovation that was because of it, it got people thinking differently and having to do more with less and having to innovate to survive. And I feel that we're on the cusp of that, especially technologically speaking. Look back at the 1950s, the post-war boom of the 1950s, right? So many icons were born: the Submariner, the Speedmaster, the Seamaster as a diver, the Navitimer, the list is endless. The 60s was a bit of an age of complacency, and I feel we've just had that. So this is a wake-up call. I really do believe that. So I'm excited, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Onwards and upwards. Don't forget to like this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right, ciao.